He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
I'm Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, and thank you for joining me today. I feel like I'm obliged to share which Kubler-Ross stage of grief I'm in at the beginning of these broadcasts going forward. I'll tell you, today's mood is denial with a healthy dusting of anger. So we'll get to some of that, where I'm directing the anger later in the show. But I feel like giving you fair warning, I don't think it'll be as tearful of a show as yesterday, and I feel like I'm in decent control over my emotions. And as I said, I'm mostly in leadership mode, trying to guide people that I can and people who trust me with my voice and with my leadership in my companies, and go from there. But on a personal level, it's still been one of the most devastating things I've ever had to deal with in my life personally. But I think I'll be able to spare you today. I couldn't yesterday, though, but that's okay. We do these shows even though they're not live yet, and that could be changing soon. I do try to do them in one take as best as I can, mostly for the sake of time, because it's very tempting to keep redoing stuff and then you'll never get the show out. But also it is important to have that connection, because I know how much I trust the host that I listen to for the various podcasts and radio shows that I love. And I want you to have that with me. I want you to feel like you're getting to know me if you're here. And thank you for being here. We got a lot to get to today, and there's so much in the news that I wish I could spend time on. Things like how Brazil has sentenced former President Jair Bolsonaro to 27 years in prison for bogus crimes against democracy. It's extremely left-wing court. They've got a version of lawfare that's actually accelerated. It's actually worse than our version of lawfare. And it just, the topic of the year for me personally, but we don't have time for that stuff. And there's a lot that's going on in the economy and around the world. There's just crazy uprisings in Nepal that are really interesting as well. But we'll say that for different shows, and we'll have some of that content for you at Breitbart.com if you need it. We'll start today with the obvious place to start, which is the assassin of Charlie Kirk. The suspect, we'll say, has been apprehended. The young man, 22 years old. I'll say the name. His name's Tyler Robinson, only because it's inevitable. I try my best not to give the bad guys the fame and notoriety, because it inevitably leads to more murder. It's just true. It's just a role we play in the media, is that the more we talk about these things, inevitably more attacks take place. I'm sure we could pull the clips. I won't bother, because you guys trust me on this, but I'm sure I said this as much after the mass killing in Minnesota, where the shooter targeted for execution children as they prayed, a trans individual. And there's no doubt that was discussed enough that it does prompt additional killings. So it's just very unfortunate. It's the way it is. But unfortunately, this person is already going to sear himself into history. So there's not much we can do about it. So we're better off being honest with our audiences and getting to know who these monsters are and the demonic nature of their perversions. So he was caught, I guess it was apparently late Thursday night, which is good news. I was on some radio hits and TV hits very early this morning, 3 a.m. my time, and I think 4 a.m. my time and 5 a.m. And I was kind of playing with the concept of how angry I should be today that he was not caught in an era of where it feels like we're all being surveilled 24/7, and we all have our photos everywhere, and you can't not have your photos online. And it takes a huge effort to not have photos online. And like, we couldn't figure out who this guy was when we had the footage that we had. How did he get away with it to this point? And it was getting really, really disturbing in a way. And this is where the real anger is, and I'll touch on this later in the show. I'm very angry about how Charlie was not protected by our government, not protected by the school. And even though I'm sure they have some limited resources, and I don't mean to call them out, I'm sure they're grieving more than anyone else, but even Charlie's own security team needed to be better. And I say this only to be productive for the future. Everyone should have been better in this case when it comes to, it's a failure. It's a, what is the expression, a zero fail situation? I mean, it's a binary. He's safe or he's not safe, and he was not safe. And if only for a moment, that's all it took. We got very lucky with President Trump. It was a miracle. It was divine intervention. Not so much with Charlie. And the fact that the roofs weren't surveilled is a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe that we did not surveil roofs when we're putting our most powerful, most potent, most important voices out there in public. We don't even have the presence of mind to check the roofs. It can't happen again. And this has to be the last time. And I don't mean to make matters worse for those who are grieving and suffering, but it's just a reality. We need to hear that. We need to hear that and need to be honest about it, that you cannot show up places if you're a prominent conservative now without people at least checking who's on the freaking roof. We just went through this last summer in Butler. It's enraging. So that's where you're seeing where the anger is coming through. But it should mostly be directed to this individual who got radicalized in recent years. The footage of him online, small videos, the photos from his parents, seemed as though he was a normal child, a normal upbringing, and somehow between early adulthood into the early 20s, he just got radicalized, and he got radicalized online. And that's what we know. There's a lot of people looking to blame universities for perhaps radicalizing him. That's a possibility. It's a possibility. I would leave that open, but we don't know. What we do know, and I'll get to this in a moment, is that he was radicalized on the internet. This is the exact same thing as what we witnessed in Minneapolis, where I told you this was the extremely online murderer, who this demonic figure got radicalized online, and you could see it with the messages written on his weapons and on his ammunition. It was all of these internet memes. He was extremely online. This individual, Tyler Robinson, was also extremely online. I'll give you some evidence of that in a moment. But I will recommend to you my Breitbart Fight Club interview today with AWR Hawkins. We're going to go into a lot of detail on how the attack took place, but I'll give you some important detail. It was a bolt-action rifle, caliber 30-06 is how they call it. It's a big game round, so easily, as is the case. One round's all it takes to take out a human target. Very popular for hunting, shot from about 200 yards away, which is, it doesn't mean you have no skill to be able to pull this off, but you don't have to be particularly skilled. Just a weekend, someone who shoots as a hobby or hunts on weekends, that's all that would take from that range. The individual messaged roommates about retrieving a rifle wrapped in a towel. And I note this because there's so much online rhetoric that can't be taken literally, but ought to be taken seriously at this point. But you can't always take it literally. There's so much, the expression is shitposting, and that's the word for it. I try to make it a family vocabulary on the show, but that's what it is. That's what's called. People are just posting things to be provocative. And this is a incident where if he was dropping off the gun in a towel, messaging a roommate about it, it makes you wonder if he had a network. I don't know. My speculation is it was not vast. My speculation is that he was not some sort of hired assassin for some nefarious left-wing billionaire. I'm guessing that's not how it's going to turn out when all the dust is settled. But we don't know if he had some sort of a network that was encouraging him or protecting him, and that needs to be investigated. We need to get the analysis of that immediately. He confessed to his father, who was former law enforcement, and was able to detain him somehow. I have no idea if that's through force or if that is through whatever it may be, however he was able to do that. But a credit to him in a way. I'm always hypercritical of the parents in these moments. But for today, I will say I'm good on the father for being able to detain him. As we learn more, that might lessen in my eyes. I tend to think of parents having a deep responsibility to keep an eye on their children, that they could pull something like this off. But from initial online indicators, it's very hard to tell. It's very hard to see what went wrong with this boy, which brings me, this young man, which brings me to my overall thesis for all of this, is that there is a massive demonic presence in America. That's the main explanation that I can see. And we're coming to the point now where it's clear to me that America needs an exorcism. We need an exorcism. And I don't say this as a joke. I say this literally. There's something happening in this country that is deeply dark, deeply demonic. And you see it, I'll touch on more of these throughout the show today, of examples of people rooting on, cheering, celebrating the assassination of a young man exercising his freedom of speech, a young father who had built incredible businesses and had deep respect, even from people who disagree with him politically, for the way he went about his business. And that's Charlie. That's my friend. And the fact that he got caught up into this, I would say this pattern that we're witnessing of radical left-wing violence, it seems as though the devil is targeting these hyper online, young, disaffected male/trans individuals. This individual was not trans. And they're being targeted online. And I'm not saying they're being targeted online just by nefarious forces, but there is pure evil here that is present. And to be in denial of that, I think, is probably to be in denial of the truth. Okay, so what's most noteworthy of all of this, the details that I think are most essential, is that the shooter had messages on bullet casings, and it was pure straight out of Antifa. So if it was not literally Antifa, like organized Antifa, it was certainly someone who is consuming the Antifa materials online. There's some other weird stuff in here as well, but it's extremely online content. Let me go through some of them. And part of this is relying on the research of my friend Seamus Bruner, who is the top researcher at Peter Schweitzer's GAI. He did a good tweet thread, which is on my feed. Do you care to pull it down? But one of them says the round that got fired said notices bulges, OWO, what's is. And this is from the furry community. So furries is a sexual fetish that I can't tell if it's a joke or not, but it's a very strange. I think it's mostly an online thing. I don't know how much of this takes place in real life, but it's certainly an online thing that is a very odd fetish culture thing. And I don't know what the significance of this means exactly, but it's perverted furry speak that takes place online. The unfired casings. This is where things get darker. One of them says, "Hey, fascist, catch." So note that is explicit. They are revealing who they are. They believe that they are executing a fascist, and they're incapable of understanding that shooting a alleged fascist while he engages in free speech, while he sits down and debates peacefully with people, while you shoot him in the throat. They don't understand that irony. And how could a human being be so stupid? We got these test scores from part of what we've been able to glean from what's available online about this individual, Tyler Robinson, was that he seemed to be a smart guy. So I don't know if that's true. He can't be that smart. But for someone not to put that together, that shooting someone is not anti-fascist, I don't understand how that's possible. There's also a series of arrows, which is apparently from a video game called Helldivers 2. It's a code for a giant bomb. So that's what that is. The next one, and the next casing says, "Oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao," which is a famous Italian anti-fascist anthem. So again, just straight out of Antifa, it is synonymous with Antifa, that phraseology. And then the last unfired casing that we saw was, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO," which is just very online speak. It's a online meme. It's something that used to be common online. Those of you who spend even a fair amount of time online, and it just reveals what I've been saying, that this is the ultimate, extremely online assassination murder. So someone who's radicalized online, again, maybe the universities too. Obviously, he went to college and he got worse at that time. So we went from being what seems like a normal boy to that. And we'll see if he gets convicted. He went from, I think, being cooperative to all lawyered up and hunkered down. So we'll see what will happen. Everyone will want him executed. And I think a lot of people want him executed publicly. It's a great moment to have a brief discussion of the death penalty, which I support fully. I'm a Catholic and the Catholic Church does not support it. So this is where I break from Catholicism. And just the simple question that comes from my friend Dennis Prager is, do you believe all murderers should live? So it's not that the death penalty has to be applied to all murderers. It's not that all murderers should die. Do you believe that all murderers should live? So if this guy apparently confessed to his father, as is the reports, and he deprived us, he robbed us, as I said yesterday, he robbed us of our Charlie and Charlie's future, and he robbed Charlie's children of a father, then would that not qualify? Especially when this was so highly planned out. It was so premeditated. So that's the big thing. And I talked to Dr. Hawkins about the weapon itself. It's a very rudimentary weapon designed in the late 1800s. And AWR is gun experts. I have no reason to doubt him. And that makes you think that I don't know what gun control, and we'll have gun control discussions. It's inevitable. It'll take place. Some are taking place already. I don't think there's a huge appetite for it, but there's some. Would there have been a gun control that would have prevented this? And the answer is probably no. So then the question is, would there have actually been any gun control that could have stopped this? And I don't think there is, realistically, because this is a sort of rudimentary, old-timey weapon, routine for hunting, and I just don't see how a reasonable gun control that you could, even if you were a hardcore anti-gun activist, what you could reasonably expect from this. This individual, no history of crime as far as we can tell, and we don't know how he got it. This is one of the main questions that we have to ask. We don't know if he was able to acquire it legally, probably, but we'll learn. Most of the time, these weapons are acquired legally. And so we want to learn how he got it and what gave him the idea. If anyone knew he had the idea that he was going to use this to assassinate a prominent political and religious figure in this country. So, but it's a valid question. Would gun control have made a difference? As far as I can tell, there aren't any. And it is to ban this weapon probably would have meant banning hunting as we know it, if not at least a lot of weapons that are used for hunting. So I just don't know how you would do that realistically with a Second Amendment in this country. So you'd have to repeal the Second Amendment to get rid of this. So the gun control discussion that will be inevitable is sort of stupid. I do think it's very important to note the security failures. Again, you cannot go to a campus anymore unless you're behind panes of bulletproof glass, unless there are drones that have surveilled the rooftops if you're outside. You got to start there, right? And there needs to be more police presence, and it should not fall on the speaker to provide it. This is one of the tricks that they came up with. And they started this back when I was a student or shortly thereafter, that the schools would make the clubs pay for security because their campuses weren't safe for speakers. So they would assess the club's expenses for security to protect the free speech event. So I put this out there on the show yesterday, and I think it's worth emphasizing. There's also a little isolation of this on my social media feeds and X, Instagram, etc., where I point out that if we have a First Amendment, but you run the risk of getting murdered every time you engage in it once you hit a certain level of prominence in this country, then what is it worth? It's not worth anything. So if radical individuals are allowed to enforce their beliefs with a bullet, with impunity, without any interference whatsoever, while you engage in peaceful debate, then there isn't really a First Amendment that's being honored in this country. So what is the spirit of it? What is it legally? So that's the question we got to ask, one of many, many, many questions. The president is going to attend the funeral of Charlie, so that'll make it a major event. I am hearing that it will be the weekend after this one. Don't quote me on it. This is a third-hand thing, so I don't. I'm trying my best not to create more work for the people I know who are close to Charlie right now. So I'm not insisting I get immediate answers, but that would be the plan. It'll be a massive event if that's the case. And if the president's there, it'll just be huge, and that's what Charlie deserves, what we need. It's very heartening to see some of the positive outpourings of support for Charlie and some of the demonstrations we're seeing. I'm seeing Greg Price posting a video of the Gavin Adcock, I'm not familiar with, but it's a huge crowd, country concert. Everyone chanting Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk. Did I get a clip of this? I meant to get a clip of this. It's in there somewhere. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here, let me play it. Misty has alerted me to it. Here we go.
Jesus loves every single one of you in this place tonight.
Yeah, amazing. And we're going to see stuff like that. We're going to see spontaneous vigils. It's going to be a lot. We're going to see a lot of positive things. And we'll document a lot of them at Breitbart. Crowds break into American Grace in central London. Amazing footage of that we'll have. We'll have that for you, Breitbart, as well. But it's going to be a ton of that. And that's great news. I think people understand what Charlie represented, and I think his legacy really has the potential to grow in death. But he was so young and he was so on the rise, and we didn't know what was coming next for him. The best very well could have been yet to come for Charlie. It almost certainly did. So that's where it's on us. It's on us to soldier on, carry his torch, carry his flame. And we're not going to have a lot of help from the establishment media and from the political left. And this is why we need to protect all of our people. We need to protect our people. We need to protect the First Amendment. Immediately, you start seeing smears of Charlie. New York Times smeared Charlie, resulting in a humiliating correction Here's what the New York Times reported about Charlie 2 days ago. The Mr. Kirk supported Mr. Trump's campaign against immigration, endorsing the so-called Great Replacement theory, which claims that immigrants will soon displace white Americans. Okay, first of all, the Great Replacement theory is happening. Like, it's real. I understand this. Is the native-born population is growing was shrinking as the immigrant population was growing. And the reason why the immigrant population was growing at the rate that it was is because Democrats want to import new voters. So, of course, they are replacing Native Americans, many of whom are white, with immigrants, many of whom are not white. I understand this. It's not even a racial thing. It's just fundamental. So it's just a very dishonest premise from the New York Times anyway. Okay, but here's the main thing. The unsubstantiated theory also claimed that Jews are orchestrating the dilution of white power by allegedly encouraging mass immigration. Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites, and they claim to want people to stop using against them. He said on his podcast, The Charlie Kirk Show, in 2023. Now listen to the correction. An earlier version of this article described incorrectly an anti-Semitic statement that Charlie Kirk has made on an episode of his podcast. He was quoting a statement from a post on social media and went on to critique it. It was not his own statement. The smears only go one direction. They only make conservatives look worse, Christians look worse. They only make Democrats and leftists look better or look more glorious. It's a fundamental. I wrote about this in Breaking the News, my first book. I explain these rules that the left does. I have a series of rules. There's a post on Breitbart News if you can't be bothered with the book. But I don't know why you would. It's a good read. But I go through the rules that places like the New York Times have when they publish. I think it's even in the chapter on the New York Times where I have the rules mapped out. One of the rules is corrections are acceptable if they make the political right look worse than they actually are, or they make the political left look better. So that's it. It's a fundamental, and it keeps going on. TMZ, which is the Harvey Levin's gossip outfit out in California, heard audio of TMZ, showed them cheering, whooping it up after news of Kirk's assassination took place. And then they fended it off by saying that they were reacting to a car chase or something that was taking place. It just strains credulity. And then they've issued a clarification. But there's going to be demands of firing, and there should be. Because we know it's real. We know we assume it's real. It's just too coincidental because we saw online the video of the car chase that they were allegedly watching. It was just, they weren't reacting to that. They're reacting to the news about Charlie. And a lot of people on the left, we've seen it over and over again, people on the left celebrating. And why wouldn't they be celebrating, considering the people who are their most beloved figures are constantly calling us fascists? They're constantly calling us Nazis. And if you call us fascists and you call us Nazis enough, then wouldn't you want us dead? One thing that is truly remarkable, that was a sort of a subtle but important detail of the press conference that took place this morning with the governor of Utah, and the FBI director Kash Patel, and others, was, I think it was the governor of Utah who said this, that he and his son recently had talked about, or the father and the son, the assassin, the alleged assassin, that they talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. So they recently talked about Charlie coming to Utah. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. Well, first of all, Charlie was a lovely man. So to not like Charlie doesn't make sense. It's just, you've just been radicalized. If you didn't like what he had to say, I understand it. But it also, where do you jump from I don't like what he had to say to I'm going to put a bullet in his throat? I'm going to snuff out his life. And I hope the father asked him, do you believe that everyone who you disagree with deserves to die? Do you believe that that's an appropriate response? And that's the response you should have to people in your life who you're forced to interact with, who are justifying this somehow. I think at this point, we have no common ground with the people who are justifying this in any way, and we should not spend a lot of time with them. They're not convincible. and you should keep them away from your children as best you can. But if you're forced to interact with some of them, if they're immediate family members, things like that, then you should ask them, do you believe that everyone you disagree with deserves to die? So then why do you believe that Charlie deserved to die? So he believed that Kirk was full of hate. Charlie's not full of hate. Charlie's very welcoming. It's interesting. I was on Piers Morgan today, and I'll put that up on my feeds as well. First time doing that show. And right on after me was Dave Rubin, who's a gay Republican, or I guess conservative-ish, former liberal commentator. And Dave immediately talked about how he would talk to Charlie about his homosexuality and his gay marriage. And Charlie disagreed with that, but was also warm to Dave and was hoping Dave would be still a part of the conservative movement. And I feel like that is the position that most of us hold on the right. I think same-sex marriage, I've been very vocal about this, put us on the slippery slope to the trans nonsense we're in now. I think it was a big mistake for the country. I said so at the time, and I've never wavered from that. But it doesn't mean we don't love the gay people in our lives, and it doesn't mean that we don't respect them, and we don't want them to be conservatives and ultimately vote for Republicans when it comes time to vote. That was Charlie's take. I don't think he was any different in that regard. I don't think there's any evidence of it whatsoever. This particular error from the New York Times is particularly egregious because Charlie was doing a colossal effort of trying to keep together a fracturing conservative coalition where there were so many increasingly prominent radical voices against Israel. And Charlie, thinking about preserving the power that we've earned, the coalition we built, while trying to bring together sides that have fundamental disagreements on the topic of Israel, Zionism, etc. And Charlie worked very hard as a pro-Israel person to do that. I would say that most of my interactions with Charlie in the last few months of his life were around that topic. I'm on a group thread with him that I'll discuss probably more at a later date where we talk only about this topic. He was very concerned about it. And he really is a committed a believer in the state of Israel. And the thought that he would be, the New York Times is unfamiliar. Their own reporters on the Charlie Kirk beat, this is what I want to say. Their own reporters on the Charlie Kirk beat are unfamiliar with his basic positions on the subject. He's pro-Israel. He's pro-Jewish. I went to an event with Charlie Kirk and Dennis Prager, who he reveres, one of the most prominent Jewish spokespeople in American life. Oh, it makes you sad. It makes you sad thinking about all that. But there's a reason why the radicalization is taking place, is because so many of these prominent voices on the left are not just indulging it, they're fanning the flames, they're enjoying it. Some of them are unknown to you, but many of them are known. I asked Misty to pull this supercut of Democrats talking about how we're all fascists, and she'd already pulled it. So you know it's good. We both thought of it independently. Let me share this with you.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the shit out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
Okay, so far that's Kamala Harris, Eric Swalwell, and Jamie Raskin, one of the main administrators of impeachment. So the standard bearer for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris, Eric Swalwell, one of the most prominent TV Democrats, and Jamie Raskin, one of the top lawfare Democrats. So they kind of are all operating in different lanes. Harris was almost president and was vice president. Swalwell is a left-wing bomb thrower, and Raskin is someone who is doing all the lawfare that I write about. That's three.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now.
That was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she just does not have a fundamental understanding of fascism. This was one of the areas of study that I took place. By the way, I saw this from an account called Western Lensman. He deserves credit. That was the person who pulled this. Unfortunately, you never know now online, which is a shame. You never know who's ripping stuff off. But I will say that I at least saw it aggregated. Maybe this person cut it. So Western Lensman online, if you care. So I studied under one of the most knowledgeable professors on the issue of radical authoritarian movements in the country. The late, great A.J. Greger, who's been cited extensively in Dinesh D'Souza's research and others at UC Berkeley. And the core tenets of fascism, they're not sitting on a campus and trying to politely discuss things with people with whom you disagree. There is a huge level of authoritarianism that runs through fascist movements that is not present in Donald Trump's America, and especially not with Charlie Kirk, but not with Donald Trump even. Remember, Trump has a press that mostly disagrees with him, and he doesn't shut it down. And they act like he won't let the AP in the briefing room because they lie about what the Gulf of America is called, and they act like that's the real threat on free press. Press is overwhelmingly left. And Trump calls up the New York Times and gives him quotes. So, and Trump did stand down after the 2020 election. They act as though he didn't, because he tried to check to see if there was any mechanism for him to stay legally and democratically. And when there wasn't any avenue, he left. J6, which you're hearing a lot of J6 talk for some reason today. J6 lasted a few hours. Congress reassembled a few hours later. If that was an insurrection, it was the lamest insurrection in history. There was no guns fired, aside from by one law enforcement officer or one Trump supporter. All right, so as AOC, here's Ellie Mistel is next, followed by Rachel Maddow, Dan Goldman, Joy Reid, Tim Waltz.
In a fascist dictatorship.
And we are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
Yeah, it is Western Lensman. So shout out there. Great cut there. Look, it is one of the tenets of fascism is that you tend to wear military garb, and there really is a deeper militarization. What is Trump used for in terms of militarization? He's for a month, he's cracking down on crime in D.C., where he has every right to do so, and that's it. He's announced, by the way, Memphis is next. He's looking at Chicago. Memphis is next for a crackdown on law and order in our streets, and I love it. I welcome it. It's not political enforcement. Like, you enforce their politics via the military. That's what fascists do. And you think of them, you think of the fascists throughout history, and a lot of them would wear military garb everywhere. It's just not who Trump is. It's such a lie, and they don't even understand what they're talking about. So I'm not yelling only because I'm exhausted, only because I'm not running a lot of sleep. I'm in probably media hit number 8 out of 15 today. I've got 5 or 6 more after this. See, that math isn't even right. It's probably 8 out of 13. But I'm not yelling, but I want you to hear me as if I'm yelling. They have blood in their hands, all of them. They want us dead. They're hunting us down. And when you call us fascist and Hitler and Nazi enough, and you push the Charlottesville hoax enough, eventually they're going to get one of us. And when we've seen that even our own Secret Service can't keep President Trump safe when he's on the campaign trail, then what prayer does a Charlie Kirk have? And of course, it's not just the prominent figures. It's also ones who have more of a cult following online. Hassan Piker is one of the most popular left-wing voices for younger generations on the more radical online sect. He's a streamer. He used to be on the platform Twitch. I don't know if he is anymore. And he's a stridently, he's a guy who's certainly playing a character to some degree, stridently violent in his rhetoric. And I want to play you a cut of him.
I'm sick and tired of it. Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them. You need to be shanking these motherfuckers and letting their intestines just ride on stage. What the fuck is this shit, man? Slice them up. Slice them and fucking dice them. What the fuck is this? You cannot have a bigger fucking layup. You could not have had a bigger fucking layup than a horrible candidate like Herschel Walker. Sure, he was prepared very well. And Herschel Walker actually had a good
So I got another minute and a half of people like him, streamers online, talking about radicalizing the youth online and including with violence. And this is a type of guy who does all the most, he does all of the most extreme Gaza Palestinian rhetoric that you can imagine. He constantly is, he frames up Hamas as a legitimate resistance to the Israeli oppressors. That's what he's about. And he's also a socialist who lives in a multi-million-dollar dwelling. At least he did at a time. I think I broke that story at Breitbart, which he did not like. So that's who, we don't know if this guy consumed that type of content, but that's what's out there. And we're going to learn more of this. We're going to learn more as we learn more about this individual, what he was reading, what he was consuming. So it's just all across the board. I could keep playing clips of this. CNN's Erin Burnett led her broadcast last night blaming MAGA supporters for their horrified reaction. Like, our reaction is not appropriate. And then you see calls for unity. You see calls for unity from people and nonviolence. Well, they're the violent ones. When was the last time we assassinated one of their field generals? It's never happened. We've never done it. And they're out there calling for unity. They want unity. No, they want submission. They want us to submit to their values. They never call for unity where they move in our direction. It's always we want unity, meaning you agree with us all the time. It means gun control. It means disarming. All stuff we're not going to do. I'll tell you, it's a great comfort that I can go out and buy more guns to protect my family in moments like this, which I will do. And I'll get trained in them better. So that if anyone messes with me or my family, they know that there's an even worse chance that there already was that it was going to turn out well for them. And that's the message. Stephen King said that Charlie Kirk wanted to stone gays, advocated stoning gays. We know that's not true. He's taking it back. It's defamation, though. It's a monstrous thing to say, which is ironic coming from a guy who writes about monsters. Have to wonder how often Stephen King's writing about himself. Threat to kill all Charlie Kirk spray painted on Seattle College campus. Yet Jen Psaki says a lot of problematic rhetoric comes from one particular side, and Trump's Trump's Charlie Kirk statement was an escalation. So we're the violent ones. Our words are violence. Their violence is protected speech. This is what happens. It got normalized after George Floyd, the scumbag who was high on fent and was resisting arrest and somehow captivated the nation. Shouldn't have died. I'll give you that. That's all I'll give you. And we're supposed to act as though that's the biggest travesty when they act like our speech is a violent threat against them, whereas their bullets are legitimate protest. Their arson is legitimate protest. No, thank you. It's over. We don't buy any of it. One of the most disturbing ones that I caught, I got to play for you, comes from Oxford, where there's a new president, a guy named George Abaronye. You know what I mean? You can figure it out. Oxford Union president. This is recent. I want you to hear this rhetoric.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. And side prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation. And this is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too regressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
By any means necessary. That's violence. When they tell you who they are, believe them. It's one of the most fundamental lessons you could ever learn in life. My friend Alan Bakari, my former colleague at Breitbart, is trying to get him kicked out of Oxford Union as president. You got to be a member of Oxford Union to do it, but I like this type of activism, and I want to see escalation. And one of the things I want to do today is share with you some of my viewpoints on where we can go from here, what we could do from here. Safety for our speakers comes first, and that comes at a government level, comes at a personal level. I'm saying the bulletproof glass, the drones, the greater security presence, the demanding that the universities actually provide for free speech, as well as the left-wing communities that tend to house these universities, the left-wing cities where that get ruined even further by our universities. We have enough adversity in our cities, and the universities make them even worse. Though, of course, you got to tone down the rhetoric, the Gavin Newsom saying punch them all the time, Chris Murphy saying that we're going to war. Do you have the Chris Murphy clip that's going around? Is that one? It seems like one you would have pulled, Misty, even though I didn't ask for it. Do we have that? I thought you did. There it is. Here it is. She's got it. Here it is.
We're not going to convince Donald Trump to stand down in his attempts to destroy our democracy through de-escalatory politics. Like, that's just not happening. So our only opportunity, our only chance to save our democracy is to fight fire with fire right now. So, yeah, do I bemoan the fact that, we're now blowing up norms? Yes, but literally for 2 seconds, because if you spend any more than that being sorry for the fact that the old world doesn't exist, then your democracy is gone. Like, we're in a war right now to save this country, and so you have to be willing to do whatever is necessary in order to save the country.
That's violence. That is the green light to take the shot at Charlie Kirk's throat. He looks like a normal, just generic white guy, Chris Murphy, but that is a demonic thing to say. That is someone who wants chaos and violence in our country. And we have to start calling these people out. We have to start judging these people. This is not acceptable. We must demand more from our elected leaders and from each other. Part of what I want to call for today is I think that not only can we not unify with these people at all, we need to defeat them at the ballot box. But we need to continue this wonderful development that we have where there are these firings that are taking place. This is peaceful, this is legal, this is nonviolent, and it's a way of calling out the bad guys, demonstrating to the public who they are, making them famous, and making it very uncomfortable for them to encourage people to assassinate our friends and our most powerful spokespeople. Here's some examples. A Cincinnati sports stadium is cutting ties with a food vendor that celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder. All these are straight out of Breitbart.com if you want more detail. Teachers across the U.S. are facing firings after celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. We provide a bunch of examples, a lot of them via the Libs of TikTok account, but there's too many to count. Florida Democrat Steve Cody has been called to resign after mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination. A school board member in Virginia endorsed Virginia Democrat Abigail Spanberger, who could become the next governor there. She praised Charlie Kirk's assassination online. Call me old-fashioned, but I remember when we used to be okay with shooting Nazis, is a post on her account. Okay with shooting Nazis. Charlie Kirk's a Nazi. Then why is the prime minister of the only Jewish state in the world heaping praise upon him? Of course, we know J.B. Pritzker says Trump making the U.S. Nazi Germany. He said today that we are making the U.S. Nazi Germany in a clip, or I guess this was 2 days ago. So he compares arresting rapists and murderers and criminals who are in our country illegally to Nazi Germany. That's what he's doing. So we got to be fearless. Trump's got to track down all these cities. He's got to do the job that these mayors and governors will not do to protect citizens in this country. And we have to continue to make sure that we expose and we get removed from any position of prominence in the community these monsters. This is the formula. More safety for our speakers. We have a collective responsibility to make sure the First Amendment is not just something on a piece of paper, but is lived. We cannot have unity with the left. They must be defeated. We can convert the liberals. If you're a liberal, if you're a free speech person, we'll convert you. Come to our side. Water's warm. It's a huge tent. We're not going to try to unify with Hassan Piker and Chris Murphy. Give me a break. I think we need a march. I'm calling for a march. I think Turning Point could organize it themselves, probably. But someone needs to. I think we need to have a march, probably on Washington, for free speech, for Charlie's legacy. I think it's important. We need to do whatever we can. But when we're seeing people get slaughtered, the most productive, most intelligent, most vibrant, the brightest lights among us getting slaughtered, and we're seeing outpouring of support for the murder, then we are at a real spiritual crossroads in this country, and we need to reset. We need to make it we need to demonstrate. That's what we need to do. We need to demonstrate right now, peacefully. Think about all these vigils that you're going to be seeing on your feeds in social media. Beautiful things that are happening because Charlie inspired people. How many people you're going to hear about for the rest of your life? For the rest of your lives, you're going to hear about people who joined our cause because they looked up to Charlie. They admired Charlie. They admired his message of nonviolence. They admired his message of intellectual heft, of using debate, of using persuasion, of using your smile and charm to try to bring people to your side. All these people are going to be influenced and brought into the fold because of Charlie. Think about all that we're going to witness, all those beautiful sentiments, and then contrast it with what happened after the death of George Floyd and after the Black Lives Matter wound up the left. They demonstrated by torching cities to the point where businesses had to shut down, where they had to board up their shops and go home and pray that they weren't looted, pray that their businesses weren't destroyed physically. Now, we need to go to a peaceful march, show people who we really are, let people see for themselves. And unfortunately, we need an exorcism too. That wasn't a joke. We need it. We're going to have to get some priests on the show, figure out how to do that on a big scale. All right, there's plenty more. We got so many great cuts. Missy's done a great job pulling stuff for me. Some crazy Jasmine Crockett stuff, some beautiful stuff from our president, some weird stuff from Jim Acosta, Don Lemon. So many people have disgraced themselves. So many people are a part of this, but just know we will never unify with you if you are engaging this rhetoric, calling us fascists, calling us Nazis. We want nothing to do with you. It's unfortunate that you're part of the country at all, but you have a right to be here and you have a right to say all the horrible things you say, but you don't have a right to shoot us. And we're going to expose you, all of you. And if you're in a position of power or prominence, we're going to come for your jobs now. It's come to that. And you have only yourselves to blame. As I've been saying, unfortunately, this is not a surprise. It's heartbreaking and it's shocking and it is rare, but they were going to get one of us. I am shocked that it happened to my friend, Charlie, person who I've known so well and have been a part of his life. That's shocking. Shocking the way it happened. But they were always going to get one of us. They almost got President Trump himself a year ago. And clearly we did not learn enough about how to protect our people. So we need to do that too. Okay, that is today's show. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing, 5-star reviews. A lot of the stuff that I cover here, a lot of the predicate is in Breaking the Law. In case you want to bone up on that, it would mean a lot. But sharing my content with friends and family right now, I want to be your voice at this tough time. And we're working really hard. Thanks to Misty. Thanks to John Castio for pulling clips. Talk to you next week.